Hello, and welcome to my Lead What You Live podcast. I'm here in the studio solo today, and we have a wonderful guest today who's across the country in California. I'm very excited to bring him on in a minute, David Carr. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Tina Lizzio, a life strategy coach and consultant. We are all playing a game in life. This life that we live requires a lot of risk and requires strategy. It helps to have a game plan. And David Carr, who you're going to meet with Steward Your Business, I actually met in a mastermind out in California over a year ago. And what's so great about these masterminds, it's not only the things that you learn, different formulas, different processes, different ways of everybody sort of shares their experience as coach and consultants in particular. When you find alignment with others, the people that you meet in masterminds is really, in fact, the greatest that you get out of it. And so David Carr is one of those special people, and we're going to have a great conversation with him today. So without further ado,
Thanks so much for having me.
hello, David.
Hey, Tina.
There
So
you
great to see you.
There you are over in California. I
Yes,
miss
Sherman.
you.
I
Thankfully,
miss you too.
we have technology, so we can do this Zoom thing. So it's like you're there, but you're not there. It's not the same
Right?
always. Energy. Everything is energy.
Mhm.
The big principle that I follow. And so, but this is cool. The technology that I get to still connect with you. This is actually my first where I don't have somebody in the studio. So you're the first
Hey,
for
awesome. I'm
that.
so
Yes.
honored.
Yes. So David, steward your business.
Yep.
David at stewardyourbusiness.com. So if you're in California, I
Yep.
know that you and your beautiful family
Mm.
unfortunately had to escape fires and crazy
Yep.
weather in the
Yep.
past year at least once.
Mhm.
How are things given what's happened in LA? It's really tragic.
Yeah. It's been
How
a
are things there?
crazy. I'm born and raised here in Southern California, Tina, and we actually have snow right now, believe it or not. I live about 6,200 feet in elevation in the San Bernardino Mountains. I actually love living in Southern California. It's beautiful, but yes, unfortunately, we've had a lot of challenges. And this is life. Like you mentioned earlier, there's ups and downs and all around. And what I found, and I love connecting with you and hopefully your audience, is the relationships that we have and that we form, and those really get us through all of these ups and downs and challenges. So thankfully, we're we're all doing well. We did have to evacuate last September for about 8 days with a fire out here, which was crazy. But we're okay. We're doing well, and I'm super, super excited just to be here with you and reconnecting. I was in your neck of the woods actually, not late last year as well, in Florida. So
You were on a super cool cruise with Giant
yeah,
Worldwide, and
yeah,
we'll get into that.
yeah. We'll get into that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Well,
Hmm.
we human beings are, stronger than we can imagine, really, and very resilient. So I'm
Yes.
glad that all is going well. And so that's why you're here. Lead what
Hmm.
you live. So
Yep.
you are someone who is an incredible man of faith, a family
Mm,
man
thank you.
with a beautiful background. And again, as I started to say in the conversation about, I really found you were one of those people that I found great alignment with in principles
Hmm.
and values and intentions in leadership and understanding. I talk often, a lot of those of you who have listened to my content, the trifecta of health, wealth, and relationships. It's finding that balance in those three main. Almost every aspect of our life can sort of be dropped into those three areas of health,
Mhm.
wealth, and relationships. And I believe
Yep.
that, as you said, the quality of our life experience really depends on the quality of our relationship, starting with the relationship with ourselves.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
gets into our health and wealth,
Yeah.
health being our greatest
Mhm.
wealth. So these all things are sort of interconnected. Our leaders have a lot cut out for them in
Mhm.
organizations, and they need support. And they need
Mhm.
support. And that is my interest in really working with founders, entrepreneurs, and executives in their field. And you do that as well. You do
Yeah.
that uniquely as well. So I want to talk
Hmm.
about that. David, if you could share with my viewers your vocation and your background.
Sure, absolutely, Tina. Well, I love the premise of your show, lead from what you live. That's really what drew me to my own personal journey of development and how do I lead others. And so this personal development came around years ago, and then about toward the end of 2022, that's when I launched Steward Your Business as a way of sharing and helping others. Really lead themselves well and their teams. And so that's been really my passion to bring people together to accomplish great things. And so uh, through the mastermind that we were in with Waco Boyer and others, I pull all of these things together to equip and empower those individuals to lead themselves well and then to lead others. And really, this is this journey of becoming, of transformation. And so I'm so passionate about this, and happy to dive deeper into some of the tools and the resources that I use. But today, now I actually work with business owners. I work with individuals, and it's so a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I just love seeing people embrace who they truly are. And finding synergy and collaborating together. So you and I were talking, and we're always looking for ways that we can collaborate and help each other, help others around us. It's just something I love, and I'm grateful to be here and explore more of it with you.
Yeah, that's excellent. And the thing is, the gift is in the giving. You know, we hear that the gift is in the giving, and there's
Mhm.
nothing more fulfilling than serving others who are really up to big stuff, and yet there are challenges. Like they say it's
Yes.
lonely at the top. So where do
Hmm.
those individuals who are leading others, well, who is there to support them?
Yes.
And their
Hmm.
teams. And so that was really a calling for me. I thought,
Hmm.
if with over a half a century like yourself, we're dating
Yeah.
ourselves, even though, of
Yep.
course, we
Yep.
look so much younger, right?
Yes.
So we have a lot of experience. We have a lot of knowledge and experience in
Hmm.
life, in both personal and professional, and the wisdom that comes from it to impart
Yeah.
to others. And so going with leadership, your
Hmm.
business is Steward Your Business.
Yep.
So tell us about that. What does that mean to you when you created Steward Your Business?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. What I realized, Tina, was business owners, one of the things that we're entrusted is individuals, people, the employees. And if we're not taking care of those well, we don't have a lot of a business. We might have systems or processes, but you can't go very far without people. And so I realized my passion, and stewardship is a word that I hold very dear to me. Usually we think of that because I come from an environmental background too. I'm a biologist trained and done environmental consulting. And stewardship means we are entrusted certain things, and it's our time, it's our resources, and people. So that's where I started. I realized, where can I help business owners in taking care of their team, their those people that they're surrounded with. And that really was the passion. That's where it started with Tina, because I had worked previously at another company, when a woman-owned small business. We grew this company from a small set of 20, 25 employees, over 80 people in about 4.5 years. And I really saw my strength was bringing all these people together, empowering them, finding what their unique talents, skills, and abilities are, and letting them do what they do best, and embracing that. And it is so exciting to me when people discover truly what their God-given gifts and abilities are, and leaning into them, and also moving away from those things that aren't in their wheelhouse, aren't what they're naturally called to be. Yes, we can all try to be all these things, but where's your sweet spot, and empowering folks in that way?
Yeah, and that's where, using assessments, we have both taken many assessments and we use
Yes.
assessment tools in working with leaders and their teams so that each individual, it's how can you get the most and best out of your people?
Yep.
It's
Hmm.
knowing them, it's understanding them, it's supporting them and working together, the cooperation, the collaboration. over the competition,
Mhm.
internally, and having them work together
Yeah.
is so important. And so, yeah, scaling and growing a business as you're adding individuals, this is where it's really helpful for those in leadership, management, human resources.
Mhm.
Who do we get to add, to the team? What are we looking for? What's needed? What type
Mhm.
of individual? What are the
Yep.
characteristics? What type of individuals will help us scale and grow, and will support the culture, right? I mean, now we have
Absolutely.
again changing again. We've come off an election year. We have a new president in
Mhm.
office again, President Trump.
Mhm.
Many may have heard the other day there was his first State of the Union, and talking about eliminating the DEI conversation and requirement within organizations that's been in
Mhm.
place. So things changed. Things changed a lot for organizations during COVID and
Yeah.
over the past 4 years, and now
Mhm.
things are shifting again, right?
Yep.
Shifting again with
Absolutely.
the politics, and we learn what works, what doesn't work, what's
Mhm.
missing. What do we get to add? What gets to go? Who gets to go?
Mhm.
And so facilitating that process, because we all have blind spots. And so
Yeah.
having, of course, a coach and consultant to go on a discovery with you, really looking at what are the real issues, at the heart of the matter.
Mhm.
What do you want? What are the end goals? And then
Mhm.
the strategy and plan on how to get there. And so
Right.
talk about some of the frameworks, and you, like
Sure.
I, do pull from. It's almost like customization. There are
Yes,
so many
absolutely.
different types of trainings, and both the academic part of certifications in facilitation and coaching and consulting, but also our own studies, on our
Mhm.
own journey, and being able to pull from all of those different tools what's necessary, what's needed in the moment. So talk about some of what you see today have been really helpful, like frameworks that really are
Absolutely.
applicable across all industries, because you don't just work in one field. Steward Your
No.
Business is applicable to, all organizations.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tina. Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that I've shared with you that I really like is this Five Voices for Teams tool that I use and a resource. And I'm not one that there's one answer answers all the questions. Like you said, we're pulling from lots of different resources. But one of them, I really found that this is really helpful in understanding your leadership voice. I've used other ones in the past. I've talked about DISC or Colby Index. These are good too, not bad. They're complementary. But I found to be this really a powerful tool that I use with a lot of clients, a lot of businesses, is understanding your leadership voice. In fact, I even do a boot camp where people can come in for free, where we go through for 90 minutes, kind of discover what is your natural voice. How do you lead yourself, and how do you show up with others? And so this has been revolutionary for me because it's not just in business, like you said, the health, wealth, and relationships trifecta, but it definitely goes into relationships beyond business. It goes into spouse, children. And so once you learn your natural voice, you understand how people interact with that voice. Um, so very, very powerful. Because I found like a lot of people, and maybe you've seen this, I'm sure you've seen this, Tina. A lot of people act certain ways that are inauthentic, meaning they think this is the way I'm supposed to show up,
Oh, yes.
and it's not right. It's not it's not their true self, but they believe that's what they need to do, and instead
Who they need
embracing
to be, right?
me. Yeah, exactly, right? Tina? I mean, that's so important.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, even, you and I have been in even with masterminds when we see certain people with very strong personalities and ways of being,
Yes.
can you create space for other voices, other ways to come in, or do you feel like my way is the only way? And sometimes that's the way people believe, and I don't think that's as effective in building teams and organizations. It may work for you as an individual, okay, but really understanding what it's like to be on the other side of your voice. You have to understand what your voice is and value that too. A lot of people don't value who they are truly, and so it's like building people up, understanding that, Tina. And I really love that tool and resource. And it's why I've aligned myself actually being certified with giant worldwide we mentioned earlier
Yes.
as a guide, as a five voices. That's one of the tools in the
Oh,
toolbox
yeah,
that I
that's just one
pull
of them,
out.
of course.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah,
know.
and so, yeah, and again, there are many tools in your toolbox, and
Hmm.
I'm glad you talked about finding our voice, and
Hmm.
oftentimes individuals think it requires being a certain way,
Yeah. Hmm.
really in the being domain, and then the things that one thinks they need to do from those ways of being and
Yeah.
behaving, and it's really not necessarily what's called for. Right?
Hmm.
It's not necessarily what's called for. And so, how do individuals know and identify what is the authentic voice? Right?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so there is an assessment for that to
Yeah,
really take a
absolutely.
look at that. And then that also supports in how is it that you are engaging with others,
Yeah.
effective or not. I love Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People
Yep.
because you're right. So
Hmm.
it's not about right or wrong or good or bad in general.
Hmm.
It's, you like it, you don't. It's what is effective.
Yeah,
What are
absolutely.
effective ways of being, what is required. And as we are energetic beings, we are, a balance of masculine men and women, a balance of masculine and feminine energy.
Yep.
We are in a world where more and more women are, stepping into power. And as a result, they're stepping more into their masculine energy, which is
Hmm.
okay as long as there's still the balance of the feminine there. And
Ah.
what we're seeing also is, the women are becoming more masculine and men often are becoming more feminine. And we have these gender roles and it's getting, confusing, right?
Yeah,
As to
absolutely.
which energy, are we bringing. And so I must give you an incredible compliment, acknowledgement, because talking about networking and your strength is absolutely top in the balance and ability to work well, to enroll, to
Mhm.
attract, to understand in your listening and listening to understand
Mhm.
with both men and women alike. It's
Yeah.
not just there are certain men that, they're great with the got boys club, right? But they're a little
Mhm.
abrasive or aggressive or too much with women.
Yep.
And same thing, with women. Some women do well
Mhm.
with women and they rub, men the other to their too much. So
Yep.
as a man, I really see that you you attract both men and women equally and know how to get the best out of them,
Mm.
whether it's individual coaching or
Yep.
in group dynamics. So,
Absolutely, dude. No,
yeah, that's
I
so
I so
important.
appreciate that. I welcome
Yes.
that. Yeah, and that's what I wanna empower others, to what you're saying, Tina, to that point is I wanna empower them to not undermine their influence, um, in being their true authentic self, and vice and having the whole team understand this. I've noticed this, Tina, as you're a strong, powerful woman that is driven, and so much I so appreciate what you have done and accomplished, and you have so many accomplishes so much. I find women, particularly some of the women I've helped with, for whatever reason, like you said, I work with really well with both men and women, but particularly right now, I've been working with a number of women business owners. A lot of business women, I find a challenge, in the space of like I'm trying to be a lot of different things, and sometimes things aren't as quote unquote culturally acceptable in our world. Like you said, be more they're like you're being too quote unquote masculine, like this energy, and it's confusing or whatnot. And
The
so
women are being told that they're being
yeah,
too masculine.
yeah, they're being, hey, you're coming off too strong, maybe, or too, you need to tone it down a little bit, kind of thing, and be more nurturing per se. In the five voices, we have a framework of one of them being the pioneer. It's that person, that visionary, that person that's pushing the envelope. And I find that the women that are pioneers have muted their voices at times, because it's like, well, that's more of a man kind of thing. And this was where the DEI stuff is trying to get in there, and it's a little, it's artificial in some of the regards. I think that's why we see some people reject some of it. But the reality is, how do we embrace everybody at the end of the day for who they truly are and encourage them to be their most authentic self in the healthiest way, and recognizing when we're doing things that are not healthy, because any of these things, any of these personality traits under things, um, which can be good and be leveraged positively, has another negative side too. I like to say there, if you think of heroes and villains, um, the reason a villain is because they might have a superpower or an ability. They've used it in a negative way. But if you flip that, they could actually be the hero. They could actually, be the person coming in. So how do you know if you're acting as a hero or the villain? And that's one of the things I'm really passionate about, is getting you in that space as an individual and as an organization, using some of these tools so we can be self-aware and we can start to pivot the story, change the narrative, so that everybody is winning.
Yeah, exactly. And often leaders don't ask for feedback. So I
Hmm.
find that feedback is so important. We don't know in all our relationships. If I don't
Yeah.
ask my kids, how am I showing up as a mom?
Yeah.
Is what's missing. Is what how could I be better?
Hmm.
Is what's missing. And in our intimate partnerships,
Hmm.
with our parents, with our friends,
Yep.
in business. It's actually asking for feedback as to
Hmm.
how we show up. And
Right.
one person, thinks doesn't is not a fan and your personalities don't gel, okay, whatever.
Hmm.
But two, three, four people start experiencing you a certain way, it's like, well, I better take a look at that. Right? I better
Right.
take a look at that. So, the 5 voices. So talk
Yeah.
about that. Talk to us about the 5 voices of leadership and
Yeah.
identifying those.
Yeah, absolutely. So the five voices is really about nature, nurture, choice. We have all of these voices, and
Nature,
some come from
nurture,
your
choice.
choice. We all have them, okay? And it's an inclusive understanding, inclusive framework of that. We all have these voices, and one's a foundational voice. Okay, think of it as if you think of I like track and field, or running a hurdle. That's your first voice. It's the hardest one to get over, and in meaning that's your foundation of where you start from, and everything else is built on there. If I wear glasses, if you ever had glasses, they check your eyesight, and overlay lenses, if you will. And so we overlay those combination. It's built. It's related to other personality tests like Myers Briggs and like DISC.
How about
They're
Enneagram?
complementary. Yeah, Enneagram.
Different
It's a
9
different
different
way of looking
personality
at them.
types. Yeah. So it's a
Yeah,
different way of looking at personality.
yeah,
Like when they
yeah.
say your
Personal.
voice, what kind of
Yeah,
voice? Is it a personality trait,
yeah.
a
It's
dominant
a person.
personality trait of leadership
Yeah, it goes beyond. It's just how do you show up naturally. So there's a
in the
foundational
world?
framework in the world. Some people are either going to be very present oriented in their voices, like thinking about the day, the here and now, and you have other people that are very more future oriented. This is just natural, like their natural voice order. Like Tina, you and I are more. We can look to the future. We can kind of see things. It's not that we don't care about things right in the moment, right here and now, but we naturally kind of can, we're more comfortable looking at things that are coming and in the forward of our purview. And there's also things in our voice order that some people are very loud, like quite literally loud, and others that are very quiet, or like a nurturer voice is going to be a very quiet voice. They're not going to ever tell you anything. They're going to ask you questions, and they don't want to rock the boat. We have the voice of a guardian, which is very about due diligence and processes and systems and checklists. You have a connector like myself or you, Tina, that are
Yes.
always reaching out to people, bringing in people naturally. You have creatives that are innovators. They can see new things. Um, and possibilities. And then you have pioneers that are the true visionaries, the folks that are kind of carving the pathway ahead of everybody else, kind of the early adopters. And so when you think about, and I'm giving you just a very sliver, quick hit of these, but when you realize just of these basic traits of being present oriented, future oriented, your voice or the loudness of your voice, how you present yourself. Think about all those different dynamics I just talked about and how they would interact with each other, and think about the order of all of those things. And so, for example, I'm a connector, creative, pioneer, nurturer, guardian. That's my voice order. I'm very future oriented in the way that I approach the world, And so I have to understand that. As I understand that, I realize, oh, some of the things of the day-to-day present oriented I neglect. And if I don't have help or outside input or learn this about myself, I'm going to be setting myself up for some challenges, and I can reduce those challenges if I understand that about myself. And who do I bring in? For example, my wife's a guardian, complete opposite voice from me, and so where we're going to have conflict about where do we start every day. And so that's why I love the tool. It's very easy, it's very sticky, it's easy to remember. And so when people go through it, and I can send anybody a link, well, on the podcast, I'll put it in there. People can take it for free. And then I do
The Five
from that,
Voices boot camp to discover
yeah, the five,
your dominant voice.
exactly. Yeah. And I offer that. It's just bootcamp.stewardyourbusiness.com. But that way, you as an individual can start to use this, or we can do it. And I do group coaching, and I work with businesses. So there's multiple ways that you can get at it. But it has been a revolutionary tool that I use, and I can't tell you enough good things about it.
Now, is there which is there a voice that we
Mhm.
find most in the top leadership position? Like, are most
Oh, that's a great
CEOs,
question.
for example, whether they're male or female, are they mostly
And
pioneers?
yours-
Are they
It's,
connectors? Are they
it's a g-
creatives? What are
it,
they?
yeah, that's a good question. Just to give you rough numbers of the population.
Yes,
Um, Guardians and nurturers make up about 70% of the population. So they're implementers. They're the people that are going to make sure things happen. Now, I think any one of the voices could be a leader. It's understanding what that means for your leadership team. So I think typically people might think the pioneer is the
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 visionary.
entrepreneur, the visionary, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be the pioneer. Pioneers make up about 7% of the population, so they're the minority voice out there. And if
Which
you add
makes
in,
sense
yeah,
because we
yep,
don't have that many people in the is a whole of the population at the top,
yeah, and
top
they
of
stick
leadership.
out. The
Yeah,
pioneers in
they
my mind
stand
stick
out.
out. They're the Steve
The
Jobs.
Steve
They're the
Jobs,
Elon Musk. They're
the
the
Bill
Donald Trump.
Gates,
Yeah,
Jeff
Bill Gates.
Bezos.
Yep, they're gonna stick out. They're just because they're small, and everybody's
Yes,
like, "Whoa, these people are not like me." The challenge for
yes.
those voices are they have a difficulty connecting with other people as far as a voice because they don't speak the language of the majority of people.
That's where it
Um,
comes in to have
yeah,
those connectors and creatives
yep.
working around them
Absolutely. You
to
need all of them. You need all the voices. And so understanding that, like you said, Tina, and then, connectors, there's about 11% of the connectors, not 9% are creatives as a foundational voice, just giving you some rough numbers. But if you even combine all of the future oriented voices, connector, creative, pioneer, it's still a minority compared to the guardians
70% are
and
guardians and
the
nurturers that are
nurturers.
out there that are in would so would that also loosely be looked at as like the supporters? They're in some position of some support role of those who are the connective
A hundred
creative
percent.
pioneers. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at a life cycle, even a business, think about this, Tina. You oftentimes need a pioneer voice or a creative. The future order voice is to start the business, but to grow and sustain a business, you need implementers. You need those that are naturally nurturers and nurturers and guardians, if you will, because they're implementers. They're present oriented in their voice. They're helping you get things done on a day to day basis. So you have to. That usually you should see that in a business where you're having more of those folks come in over the life of the business, you know? Um,
Is there something to be said for like, well, should we as strengths
yeah,
finder would suggest that there's a book out there, and that's another assessment tool, strengths finder
yep,
2.0, which I think is great. It's looking at what are your top strengths. A
yep,
lot of organizations will spend too much time trying to support people where they're weak
yes,
instead of hiring people for what they're good at and just focusing on that.
yep,
So, for example, I do not enjoy, that's putting it mildly, administrative work.
yes,
I just it's like sticking needles in my eyes to do
yeah,
any kind of administrative computer data kind of work. Can I do it? Yeah, I can do it and be super detail oriented about it.
yep, mhm,
I can do it. I just don't enjoy doing it. So there's some resistance there. So why focus
Mhm.
on it?
Yep.
And there are others that will be more proficient also because that's what they
Absolutely.
do and that's what they enjoy doing.
Mhm.
So the suggestion is let's play to people's strengths. So I equate this to let's focus on what is your natural authentic voice
Yep.
and where does that serve you best and how does that show up in all of your relationships in life with your kids, with your
Yeah.
spouse. It's just this isn't just business leadership because of course
Mhm.
you can't really, like I say, you can't really separate out health, wealth and relationships. Every day we wake up in the morning and we say there's an assessment about how do I feel today
Mhm.
and
Yep.
what's my bank account say, how am I
Mhm.
doing in my relationships, is there any tension or conflict anywhere, right?
Mhm.
So with
Yeah.
knowing our voice and how to use it, does it support us in working towards finding the other voices so that we can access the other ways of being
Mhm.
when called for, or not really?
No. I mean, you absolutely can. One of the things you talk about energy, Tina, but you just imagine it's not that, we can access those other voices. I'm very much like you. The guardian voice is even because I call it sometimes maybe your nemesis voice, but
Yeah.
for me, because it's complete opposite for me. So energetically, when I choose to do that voice, I know it's going to take me longer. It's just, I'm not going to be in my sweet spot. So it's being aware that you can access all of these, but where are you going to be in your sweet spot where you're really enjoying it, you're engaged, people need this, and so that to me is really really helpful to understand that. Now, also the other side of it is, like you said, if I don't like to know the detailed work, how do I work with somebody that does like that and gets them excited. I literally had a woman on my podcast that I was recording, Tina, and for me, you and I, we can go on the flow. It's very easy. But
Yes.
this other person, they're like, I need a detailed list. I need to make sure you write all this stuff out. So it wasn't natural for me to do it, but I knew she would be more successful on the podcast if I gave her a more detailed outline and put things together. And our connection would work better um, working together if I could help meet her where she's at. So it's understanding this. It's not saying to other people, well, you just got to accept me for who I am. There's an understanding of, yes, that fundamentally. However, if I can step back and say, you know what, I can lean into this other person's voice where they're coming from, at least have an appreciation for their voice. One of the things that was really helpful for me in this journey, because guardians and particularly can come off very cold and critical because they're like just calculating like all these little things,
Mhm.
and I had to learn that is a way of them showing love and appreciation for me. It doesn't feel like it, but when I learned like their natural voice is to question everything and to make sure resources are being taken care of well, that's how they show appreciation and love. They don't sometimes understand my voice. They're like, "Why do you have to talk to all these people or you're moving all these things, right?
Yes.
Why do you have to do that?" But then they're like, "Oh, I get it because you're building relationships in a different way and that's not just wasting time, you know?" But it's a two-way street. And the better that you said earlier, Tina, to me, which I so appreciate, the better that I can work with men and women and understand where they're coming from, the greater the influence I'm going to have, the greater impact, and how we can collaborate and work together. I just and rather than digging my heels and say you've got to come and be like more like me, that's where I feel like I don't want to be the other voice, but I understand how to access the other voice when I
Yes.
need to, right?
Yes, well, we are both coach and consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
to make that distinction, there are people say, well, what's the difference between a coach and a therapist, a life coach and a therapist? Well, a
Yes.
therapist you're looking in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a narrative that one still has about the past that maybe has them stuck or not able to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And getting support and looking and healing of the past and maybe reframing things, but it's past. Whereas coaching
Mm-hmm.
is here's where we are. We look at the past as a reference point, but not a place to stay and to live. It's what do
Mm-hmm.
you want and where do you want to go? So here's
Yep.
where we are. We can reference the past, but it's where are we going?
Yeah.
Right? Where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's discovery. So the coaching and consulting is so important because the first part is identifying where are you? How do you feel
Mhm.
about where you are? What's been your focus? What do you
Yeah.
want? Where do you want to go? And then
Mhm.
you're taking off the coaching hat once you've identified these things. Again, the five voices, the leadership style, these
Mhm.
characteristics. Who is this man or woman in front of me? What are
Right.
their challenges? Who is this group of people? Identifying the different personalities, the different motivations, the different focus, right? Of
Mhm.
of the of
Mhm.
the individual or the group, the support
Mhm.
group. And then putting on the consulting hat. It's like, okay, I got it. I understand. Now,
Mhm.
here's how we're going to all work better together. How we're going to
Yes.
work better together on the vision with a mission that's
Mhm.
collaborative, again, not competitive, and we have like
Mhm.
full cooperation. And
Right.
oftentimes, there won't always be agreement, but
Mhm.
finding alignment. How can
Yes.
individuals, even though they don't agree, how we can align to work well together because and find alignment for the common, vision.
Absolutely, Tina.
And so coach, consultant, five voices. I start thinking about five love
Mm.
languages. We have the
Yeah,
four
yeah. Mhm.
agreements and the seven
Mhm.
habits of highly effective people. And so when you think
Right.
about love languages, that particular book, those of you who have read
Yeah.
it, which is a great read for relationships, it's, one person, their dominant love language is how they feel loved is physical touch. The other one, it's acts of service. They like to receive
Mhm.
acts of service. And so oftentimes what people bring to another to show their love. When you talk about the guardian, they're bringing what they enjoy receiving. It's like,
Yes.
I really like acts. Let's say you really like acts of service. So your
Yep.
tendency is to do acts of service, be that way for another. But what the other
Yep.
person says, this is awesome, all these things you're doing for me, but I
Mhm.
really need more intimacy and physical touch.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
as an example, and that's,
Mhm.
getting into nurturing. And so I can kind of see how these things all overlap,
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
you
here's the
know?
thing. I mean, I like the book that you when you're saying the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People too. The book, that talks about moving from independence to interdependence, right? We're stronger
Yes.
when we can be interdependent upon each other because we understand um we're better together and instead of trying to go it alone. It's just it's it's appreciation for, like you said, these different voices and how or ways of being. And then you apply. What I love about this is like you and I were in this mastermind, and then you can apply these other frameworks once you understand the your voice or the way you are. And I've done all so many much work in this area of pulling these out and seeing where that consistent story is, truly embracing and loving and appreciating who I am. Then now you can take anything else that comes at your way. It's like a filter, if you will, of like, okay, this is how I would apply or applies to me or not, instead of the other way around. To me, it's been revolutionary in that regard, because it really sets you free from what other people perceive or how they're putting things. And it may work for them, and now I realize, for example, I'm not a pioneer voice naturally. And if I try to apply things as a pioneer voice as my foundational way of being, I'm gonna have a struggle over the long haul. So, like you said, Strength Finders is another one. It's getting language, and this is what I found. The way our brains work, we're challenged to put into words some of these things. So that's why I like the five voices, other things. It distills it down and helps. And over time, you start to get clearer and clearer on this is who I really am and embrace that. And when somebody says to you, "Well, that I'm not that way," or like you said, the five love languages. I don't need words of affirmation. Pioneers typically don't need words of affirmation. They're pretty confident in themselves. So if then it then it's like, okay, well, that doesn't apply to me. So it's just appreciating and knowing who you are. And I'm 51. This has been a lifelong journey of understanding and appreciating myself. But when I become in this place, Tina, what I love is I'm coming from a place of wholeness, abundance, and that's where I want others to come from. I feel like a lot of people are lost. A lot of people are isolated. They're feeling lonely. They're feeling depressed in our crazy world. And we want to
Oh,
come from a
yes.
place of abundance and being filled so then we can come and give, right? And bless others. I'm a give before you get, big on that of like So you've
You
got and put your own water across
absolutely
your gas
are.
line,
Going
you
back to
know?
steward your business and being
Yeah,
in service. And so
absolutely.
yes, and I experience you. I mean, I can give you
No.
that feedback from experience and time with you
Mhm.
that you are a natural giver. We are connectors. And so we
Mhm.
do understand, it's just, it's karma, it's energy. You get what you give, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
you get what you give, and that law of reciprocity out
Mhm.
there. And for people who don't, especially in leadership, they're often afraid to ask for feedback about how they're showing
Mhm.
up. So what's
Yeah.
so great about something like the five voices is being able to discover your authentic voice and get
Mhm.
feedback
Yeah.
by taking an assessment like that
Mhm.
without or before before asking other humans who are also viewing their world through their own lens, right? We
Yeah.
all have a lens through which we see the world. You talked about it before. You're wearing glasses right
Mhm.
now and have different perspectives. So it kind of takes others out of the equation, and so we can
Mhm.
sort of take an assessment
Yeah.
and discover a lot about ourselves, that way. And
Yeah.
working with a coaching consultant like yourself supports that process. So, the Five Voices Boot Camp, exactly
Yep.
tell us again where we can reach that. I know you have another free boot camp coming up where people
Yeah.
can go through the process and discover their voice and learn more how to
Love
play into that
yeah.
strength.
Would love to have them. It's bootcamp.stewardyourbusiness.com. I have one actually coming in at the end of March, so you guys are welcome to join up. It's absolutely free. It's 90 minutes where we go through deeper dive than will be shared here today, and that's just a way of me giving back, giving resources. Something that's helped me. And even if you can't make the boot camp, I've got a free assessment. You can take the five voices, and I'll send you that link to Tina, so you can include that in the show notes here.
Perfect.
But yeah, just because it's liberating, and I think doing this work now, hopefully before you and I talked before we started recording, but doing this work now on yourself before things break down, before things are falling apart, be proactive and this is a lifestyle now I know Tina lives this is a life of becoming and
I
continuing to work on
desire
each
to
other.
be better
Yeah.
than I was yesterday.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so why do individuals wait until they get the diagnosis to make
Mhm.
lifestyle changes? Why we're almost broke, we're bleeding out our capital or
Mhm.
money before we get a fire under our butt or before
Mhm.
people start to hustle, right? You don't want to
Yep.
do things out of desperation,
Mhm.
fear and desperation, or, you're on the brink of divorce and then you decide to go to therapy, as
Yep.
opposed to regularly visiting, paying attention, and being proactive in all of these areas of our
Mhm.
health and financial matters and our most important relationships so we can have extraordinary relationships. So
Absolutely.
David Carr, Steward Your Business, thank you so much for taking the time to
My
meet me.
pleasure.
And I look forward to I never say goodbye. It's to be continued.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank you,
much, Tina.
David. Thank you.
Honored to
And
be
thank
here.
all of you for joining me, Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio, where again, I will continue to have top leaders in their field bring their knowledge and experience and the wisdom that comes from it to share with all of you. Ciao for now.